In a dystopian future where the economy has collapsed, Terminal Island Penitentiary hosts a violent sport known as death race, where prisoners compete in deadly car races. The goal is simple: win 5 races and earn freedom. The races are broadcast to a global audience, making them a massive source of entertainment and revenue. The most famous driver, Frankenstein, is known for his resilience, but during one race, he crashes and dies in a fiery explosion. The public, however, is unaware of his death, as his identity has always been hidden behind a mask. Jensen Ames, a former race car driver turned factory worker, is struggling to get by. After losing his job at a steel mill, he returns home to his wife and infant daughter, trying to make ends meet. That night, an intruder kills his wife while he is knocked unconscious. When Jensen awakens, he is framed for the murder. With overwhelming evidence planted against him, Jensen is arrested, convicted, and sent to Terminal Island, where the death race is held. Upon arrival at the prison, Jensen is approached by Warden Hennessy, the mastermind behind the death race. She reveals her plan to have him race under the guise of Frankenstein, as the character is popular and the audience would never know the difference. Jensen is hesitant, but Hennessy sweetens the deal. If he wins the upcoming race, he will be set free. Realizing he has no choice, Jensen agrees to race. Jensen is introduced to his crew, led by Coach, a mechanic who provides him with the details of the race. Coach explains that each car is equipped with deadly weapons like machine guns, rocket launchers, and napalm. The track is filled with traps and obstacles designed to take out the competition. To win, Jensen will have to survive not only the race, but also the other drivers, who are just as dangerous as the course itself. His primary rival is Machine Gun Joe, a ruthless driver with a reputation for killing his competitors. Jensen begins preparing for the first race with his pit crew, which includes Coach, Gunner, and Lists. They show him his car, a heavily armored Ford Mustang fitted with an array of weapons, including machine guns and smoke screens. Each car in the race has built-in weapons and defenses, activated by driving over specific pressure plates on the track. These sword plates activate offensive weapons, while shield plates activate defensive mechanisms. Coach explains that the key to surviving the death race is not just speed, but mastering the use of these weapons and defenses. On race day, Jensen is outfitted with Frankenstein's iconic mask and prepared to face the other prisoners. The race kicks off with a deafening roar as the cars speed down the track. Immediately, chaos ensues. Drivers unleash their weapons, and explosions rock the stadium as cars are destroyed one by one. Jensen quickly realizes that this is more than just a race. It's a full-scale battle for survival. Jensen manages to hold his own during the first lap, successfully navigating the deadly course and using his car's weapons to take out several competitors. However, he soon comes face-to-face with Machine Gun Joe, the most feared driver in the race. Joe is a brutal, relentless driver who has no qualms about killing anyone who stands in his way. He quickly targets Jensen, firing his car's machine guns at him in an attempt to take him out of the race. Despite Joe's aggression, Jensen manages to evade his attacks, using the car's defensive capabilities to block incoming fire and protect himself from being destroyed. The first leg of the race is intense, with drivers crashing and burning around him, but Jensen survives the initial assault. As the race progresses, he starts to gain a better understanding of the mechanics of the death race, learning how to strategically activate his weapons and shields to both defend himself and take out his rivals. Back in the pit, after the first race, Jensen meets with Coach and his crew to review his performance. They inform him that he did well, but it's clear that winning will not be easy. Machine Gun Joe is determined to eliminate him, and Hennessy, while promising freedom, is ruthless in her management of the event. It becomes evident that the system is rigged to ensure maximum entertainment, and that Hennessy has no intention of making Jensen's path to freedom an easy one. Jensen also begins to suspect that his framing for his wife's murder was no coincidence. Hennessy seems to know more than she lets on, and the entire situation reeks of a larger conspiracy. As the next race approaches, Jensen realizes that simply surviving the death race might not be enough. He will have to uncover the truth behind his imprisonment and find a way to outsmart Hennessy if he hopes to make it out alive. The second race begins with even higher stakes as the number of remaining drivers dwindles and the competition becomes more intense. Jensen, now more familiar with the mechanics of the death race, is prepared to face even more dangerous opponents. Machine Gun Joe continues to target him, but Jensen manages to stay ahead by strategically using the weapons and defenses on his car. However, the track itself is just as deadly, with traps such as spiked barricades, oil slicks, and explosive mines. Drivers are eliminated one by one, their cars destroyed in violent collisions and fiery explosions. During the race, Jensen starts to bond with his co-driver, Case, who handles navigation and assists with the car's systems. Case is revealed to be working for Warden Hennessy, feeding her inside information about the drivers. Despite this, she begins to show signs of loyalty to Jensen, subtly helping him navigate the course and avoid certain death. It's clear that her role in helping Jensen is part of a larger plan orchestrated by Hennessy, but Jensen is unsure of her true motives. Midway through the race, Hennessy activates a special trap designed to eliminate Jensen. She orders the release of the Dreadnought, a massive armored truck equipped with a flamethrower, missile launchers, and a huge front plow capable of crushing anything in its path. The Dreadnought is nearly indestructible and is sent onto the track to destroy all remaining racers, including Jensen. It immediately wreaks havoc, obliterating several cars in its path and forcing the remaining drivers to flee. Jensen, realizing that the Dreadnought is too powerful to outrun or outgun, devises a plan to take it down. He works together with Machine Gun Joe, forming an uneasy alliance with his rival to survive. They coordinate their attacks, using their car's combined firepower to disable the Dreadnought's weapon systems. Eventually, Jensen manages to maneuver his car in front of the massive truck, triggering a series of traps on the track that cause the Dreadnought to crash into an explosive barrier, destroying it in a massive explosion. After the destruction of the Dreadnought, there are only a few drivers left in the race, and the tension between Jensen and Machine Gun Joe continues to escalate. Joe is furious that Jensen survived, and the two are now the primary contenders for the win. Hennessy, seeing that Jensen is becoming a fan favorite, becomes more determined to prevent him from winning the final race. She orders her staff to sabotage his car and ensure that he does not survive the next round. Back in the pit after the second race, Jensen confronts Case about her role in working with Hennessy. Case admits that she was promised her own freedom in exchange for helping sabotage Frankenstein's previous races, including working against him. However, she reveals that she wants to help Jensen win, feeling guilty for her involvement in the death of the original Frankenstein. She agrees to help him, knowing that they will both need to work together if they are going to take down Hennessy's rigged system and escape alive. Jensen, now more suspicious of everyone around him, prepares for the final race. The final race begins. Jensen, now fully aware that Hennessy has no intention of letting him win, enters the race knowing that it's not just about driving skill. Survival and strategy are just as important. His car, having been repaired by his pit crew, is ready, but there's an uneasy feeling as Jensen suspects sabotage could still be in play. Case sits beside him, acting as his navigator again, though the trust between them remains fragile. As the race starts, the remaining drivers launch into high-speed action. Machine Gun Joe is still the biggest threat, constantly hounding Jensen and trying to push him into traps set along the track. The race itself is more dangerous than ever, as Hennessy has doubled down on traps, obstacles, and weaponized hazards. From spikes shooting up from the ground to oil slicks that cause cars to skid out of control, the race quickly turns into a deadly battlefield. Jensen manages to avoid several traps and takes out a couple of the remaining competitors using his car's weapons. He shoots down one opponent with machine guns and forces another car into a barricade, causing it to flip over and explode. The tension escalates when he notices that the weapons on his car aren't working as they should. Despite driving over weapon activation plates, some of his key weapons malfunction. It's clear that Hennessy's team has tampered with his car in a final attempt to prevent him from winning. Meanwhile, Machine Gun Joe is relentless. He targets Jensen at every opportunity, trying to ram his car off the track or into hazards. Jensen uses every trick he knows, from sharp turns to defensive driving, to keep Joe at bay. But it's becoming clear that they're the only two drivers left in serious contention. The other remaining drivers are eliminated in a series of fiery crashes as they fall prey to the many traps and attacks on the course. As they approach the final laps of the race, Jensen realizes that Hennessy has no no intention of letting him leave the prison alive, let alone win. He's left with no choice but to change the plan. Instead of just focusing on winning the race, he begins formulating an escape strategy. He and Case coordinate to trick Machine Gun Joe into believing that Jensen's car is falling apart. They play a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with Jensen purposefully slowing down and taking hits to lure Joe closer. Just as Joe seems to have the upper hand, Case and Jensen execute their plan. Case uses the car's remaining defenses to blind Joe's car momentarily, causing Joe to miss a crucial turn and crash into a pile of debris. Though Joe is injured, he's not killed, and his car remains operational. However, the crash buys Jensen enough time to make his next move. At this point, Jensen activates a secret weapon that Coach had hidden in the car, a turbo boost system that can only be used once. He speeds ahead, leaving Joe in the dust as he races toward the finish line. But just as victory seems within reach, Hennessy remotely deactivates Jensen's car engine, bringing him to an abrupt halt just a short distance from the finish line. With the race hanging in the balance, it seems that Hennessy's plan has succeeded in stopping Jensen once and for all. However, Case, having expected this sabotage, reveals a hidden override switch that Coach had installed, which reactivates the car's systems. Jensen's car roars back to life, and he slams the accelerator, pushing the car across the finish line before Joe can catch up. Jensen wins the race. After Jensen crosses the finish line, the crowd erupts in cheers, believing Frankenstein has once again triumphed. Warden Hennessy, however, is not pleased. She's been outmaneuvered, and her plan to prevent Jensen from winning has failed. Jensen and Case return to the pit, but instead of being granted his freedom as promised, they're immediately surrounded by guards. Hennessy smugly informs Jensen that while he may have won the race, she never had any intention of letting him walk free. She tells him that Frankenstein's legacy is too valuable to be retired, and she plans to continue using him for future races, simply replacing Jensen with another driver to wear the mask. At this point, Jensen realizes that the whole system is rigged, and no one ever truly wins their freedom through the death race. Hennessy's entire operation is designed to keep drivers trapped in an endless cycle of violence for the entertainment of the masses. She believes she's untouchable, controlling the death race with an iron grip, and that Jensen has no way out. But Jensen, with the help of Case and his crew, has been planning a different kind of escape. Back in the garage, Coach and the rest of the pit crew have been working on a secret plan. They've disabled the tracking devices in Jensen's car and prepared it for a high-speed escape from the island. Case reveals that her sentence is also rigged, and she'll never be released unless she finds a way out herself. Together, they decide to take matters into their own hands. In a tense sequence, Jensen and Case make a break for it. They jump into the armored Mustang and speed through the prison compound, smashing through gates and evading security personnel. Hennessy orders her guards to stop them, but the heavily armed prison staff are no match for Jensen's driving skills and the firepower of his car. The pair race toward the prison's perimeter, dodging obstacles and outgunning the guards who try to block their path. As they near the final barrier, Hennessy unleashes her last-ditch effort to stop them, a heavily armed helicopter. The chopper tracks Jensen's car, firing bullets and missiles in an attempt to take him out before he can escape the island. In a high-stakes chase, Jensen pushes the Mustang to its limits, swerving to avoid the incoming fire. With his car taking heavy damage, it seems like they're about to be caught, when Coach, still in the control room, springs into action. He remotely activates a series of traps on the track, forcing the helicopter to fly into a narrow canyon filled with obstacles. The helicopter gets caught in the crossfire, slamming into one of the barriers and crashing in a fiery explosion. With their last obstacle out of the way, Jensen and Case make their final dash for freedom, breaking through the final gate and escaping the island. Back at the prison, Hennessy watches in disbelief as Jensen disappears from her grasp. But as she turns to gloat to her staff, she's met with a surprise. Coach has left her a parting gift. A package containing an explosive device is sitting on her desk. Before Hennessy can react, the bomb detonates, killing her and her assistant. Meanwhile, Jensen and Case, now free, drive away from the prison. They make their way to a remote location, leaving behind the chaos of Terminal Island. After escaping from Terminal Island, Jensen and Case drive to a remote industrial location where they meet with Jensen's daughter, who had been taken into protective custody. Case helps Jensen reunite with his daughter, and they embrace after the long ordeal. With his daughter safe, Jensen can finally take a moment to reflect on what he has gone through. Back at the prison, Coach watches from a control room, satisfied with the outcome. He had been instrumental in helping Jensen and Case execute their escape, and as the prison resumes operations, Coach continues with his role as a mechanic within the death race program. The film cuts back to the aftermath of Hennessy's death. The warden's office has been obliterated by the explosion, and both she and her assistant have been killed. The prison staff are left scrambling, uncertain of what comes next for the death race program without its ruthless leader. Jensen, now with his daughter, is shown driving away from the industrial area with Case by his side. The film ends with the two of them heading off into the distance, free from the brutal world of the death race, but still fugitives on the run from the law. The film wraps up by showing the fallout at Terminal Island. With Warden Hennessy dead, the control of the death race program becomes uncertain. The camera shows a brief scene where the prison staff and guards are left in confusion, unable to manage the chaos caused by Jensen's escape and Hennessy's death. Jensen, Case, and Jensen's daughter are now living in hiding. The setting is calm, and they appear to have found temporary peace after their escape from the prison. Jensen has transitioned from a man trapped in a deadly game to a father trying to create a new life for his daughter. In the last scene, Jensen is seen working on a car, showing that despite everything, he's still tied to his past as a racer. Case watches him from a distance, and they exchange a look of mutual understanding. Although the movie ends on this somewhat hopeful note, there's an underlying tension that the law might still be hunting them, and their freedom may be temporary.